What is your relationship with the unknown? What does the unknown mean to you? Your answer to this question determines if you are in a survival mode or potential mode. As you probably understand, survival mode is where you struggle, you're in fear, you're in guilt, shame, whatever negative emotions, and potential mode is when you trust, you feel loved, you feel joy, you feel just a sense of lightness. And in this video, I will share a technique that you can use to transform your life from survival mode into potential mode, because we all want to live a good life that is full of possibilities, right? My name is Mitz, and I've gone through a pretty big roller coaster in my life, and I've just been curious on why is life so hard? Why am I feeling so bad? And that's when I stumbled upon solutions. I used to be a really negative person. I didn't understand it. I didn't see myself as a negative person because there was so many negative emotions inside of me that people had either projected onto me or I wasn't ready to face, and I suppressed them. Well, my life wasn't really that good. And I had to find some answers, and I actually paid quite a lot of money for a coaching service. And there was one thing that changed it all. And this was a book called Letting Go by David Hawkins. And in this video, I will share the technique letting go and how it actually helped my life immensely. Just basically overnight transformed my life, my relationships, and the potential I see for myself in this lifetime. On a mental level, letting go, the pathway of surrender, that just feels like, okay, you're just giving up on life and everything's just gonna turn out to be shit, right? That's what I thought in the beginning. But once I started to apply this technique and understand the broader sense of letting go, it all made so much sense. And there's this really great analogy of the ocean and a cork. And when we're born, we're kind of afloat. And then life happens and we get into certain families and certain dynamics, and there's all kinds of traumas and limiting beliefs and all that. Negativity starts to push us down. So the cork gets heavier and heavier. Every negative emotion that is suppressed or some kind of negative projection you get from the external world weighs down the cork. And the lower in the ocean you go, the more negativity you feel, and you are in a negative vibrational state. And this negative vibrational state, it affects everything in your life. It affects your relationship, it affects your potential, it affects how you feel and how you act, how you think. So the challenge here is that we need to find out how to let go of these negative things. And this is when letting go starts to actually make sense, because you realize that your natural state is actually on the surface, floating, this cork. But there's so much of your past and all these different things that has happened, they weigh you down. And the only way to get back into this natural state, into joy, into love, into excitement, is by letting go. But we are so conditioned to be in this struggle, because actually these struggles and these negative things have made us survive in those situations that we have gone through in the childhood or in our youth or whatever the traumatic situation and events may have been. But now we're not in those traumatic events anymore. And now it's time to let go of that identity who needs those struggles. Okay? Think of it like your childhood was basically living in the woods. You were terrified of tigers and bears and all these dangers, and that's why you created these limiting beliefs and these different traits just to survive. You were in survival mode. But now, when you're grown up, you don't need to survive anymore. Now it's time to thrive because the environment isn't the same. But before our mind and body gets into a safe enough space, we're not able to actually be creative, to create our dream life and go and just be happy. And this is because there's so many negative emotions keeping us down. So let's begin with the deepest and most heavy weights. That is shame, guilt, apathy, and grief. These are emotions that most people try to avoid in their life. And that's the issue here. We try to avoid these and we try to push them away in order to feel better. But doing that, we store them in our body, we store them in our unconscious mind, and they start to play out different scenarios even if we don't want it. And this is why it feels so difficult to change. Even if we try to make new habits, we try to do all these things, but our unconscious and subconscious mind is sabotaging it because we have these shadows, these negative emotions that keep on just ruining everything for us. And this is exactly what happened to me. When I started this self-development journey like 7 years ago, I tried all these surface level things like habits and all, you need to develop this and you need to eat better and all these things and you need to build a business, whatever, but it still didn't work. I still felt like shit. I felt like the more I develop myself, the more I struggle. And that just felt like, what's wrong here? What's wrong here? And when I stumbled upon the letting go technique, it just changed my life because I understood that, wow, I have so much guilt because I've also been projected so much guilt in my life and I have so much shame. And then there was like grief and this apathy. That's kind of this depressional state. And I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. And when I started to create boundaries and let go of these things, and I'm gonna come to the technique in a while, everything started to change. I started to feel lighter. I'm like, wow, okay, I get into this neutrality. I get into anger. I get into action. I'm like, fuck, this is wrong. And then I get into courage. And then everything just started to kind of work on itself. And I realized that the biggest issue and the biggest mistake I had made was trying to avoid these hard and difficult feelings. I tried so much to avoid them that they started to rule my whole life and my being. And the moment I sat down with my grief, with my apathy, and just like when I felt depressed, I was like, okay, I'm not trying to change it. I'm just gonna sit with this. And the same with guilt. Oh, I'm just gonna feel my guilt and my shame. When you have this sense of, I just wanna bury myself underground because this feels horrible, what happens is that it runs out. The longer you sit with these negative feelings, the more they start running out. And you will get to a point where you're just like, oh, I can let go of this. And it vanishes. And the more you do this, the less they come back. They lose the power. Feel it to heal it. This is amazing. So the technique is really simple. You accept that life has all kind of feelings. There's all kind of events that trigger different feelings, and you let those feelings come in. And this is also emotional intelligence, when you don't try to change anything, you don't try to suppress anything, you actually take responsibility for the feelings that arise and you sit with it. You give space, you give time, and you just feel. You don't react. You just try to sit with the emotion. You observe the emotion and then you let it go. And it's such a simple thing, and I honestly believe that in every school, in every workplace, they should be teaching this, because it would eliminate so much stress, so much anxiety, and so much guilt, shame, fear that is just unnecessary. We are naturally the cork that floats to the surface, that is happy, joyous, like kids, small kids. They are happy, and then they got hungry or something. They get these fear triggers or guilt triggers or whatever it is, and then they need the care from the caretaker. And the issues usually start if the caretaker don't supply the whole space and the understanding of their emotions. And that's pretty much all of us have had some kind of emotional neglect when growing up. Especially if you're watching this video, we've all had these things that just makes us feel unworthy and makes us feel that there's something wrong with us, but actually there isn't. There is just these unfelt negative emotions and the stories that we are somehow flawed. But when we let go of all these negative ideas and feelings and vibrations in our body, we start to rise naturally. And it feels so incredible and so light when you let go, especially of shame and guilt and anger, these things that are just so heavy, such big burdens that usually aren't even our fault. It's just some other people, some generational trauma that's just been passed on as a tradition to the kids. You let go of that. It's unbelievable how light you can feel. This is what makes my work so great. This is why I'm so excited about sharing these things, because I know that this can change lives. In this book, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender, David Hawkins shares a lot of different results from this letting go technique. And there's even like these manifestation things, like law of attraction. When he goes on to testing this technique and he needs an apartment in New York that seems impossible to get for a reasonable price in Manhattan or something. And he does the wishing and he creates a plan, a detailed thing of what he actually wants, and then he let go of the desire completely. And suddenly, during that one day, he is able to drive to a place where they're doing these rental homes, and there suddenly is the exact apartment that he imagined and that he wanted, but he let go of the wanting. And this is just one example in the book. Other benefits are like health issues. There's this amazing story of this health practitioner that was really good at what he did in his work, but he started to accumulate a lot of different symptoms and these really big health issues with himself. And he did that for like 20 years until he was like not able to even do his practice. And this is when he found the letting go technique. And in a few years, he was able to cure almost all of his illnesses and issues. And the problem, what he realized later, was that he was never allowed to feel. So he kind of created this version of himself where he never took his own emotions into consideration and he just kept on suppressing them. It almost cost his life. It almost ruined everything. But when he realized that, wow, he's been avoiding this thing called feeling for so long, and when he started bit by bit releasing these emotions, the symptoms just vanished. And there's even more stories in the book, and I highly suggest you read it because it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life, and I've read a few hundred at least, and nothing really compares to this. And it's not like it's any religion, it's not a dogma, it's not like a belief system or anything. It's just this technique of allowing feelings to come in, and then you sit with them for long enough and you can let it go. I want to share a few points on a practical side that I've realized with doing this technique for a few months, and also that I've been working with a client. It's easy when you get triggered and you're alone and you sit with the feelings, but it's a totally different ball game when you're out in the world, you're in your workplace or you're with family or something like that, and these triggers come up that are like negative emotions. And how do you handle that? This is where awareness comes in, and these pattern recognitions of these old ways of doing. Let's say that you and your mom have a certain dynamic and she's been shaming you or making you feel guilty for not being enough, for not being the exact son or daughter that she wanted, and that makes you feel guilty and that you're not good enough. When you understand this pattern, and maybe that she even had that pattern with her parents, you start to realize like, wow, it's in these moments that you need to feel that guilt and realize that you're not gonna react to that guilt. You're gonna feel it, and then you're gonna respond differently, because this is where the real change happens. When there's a certain pattern that has been going on for a long time, and you just feel worse and worse and worse because it's a negative pattern. Someone is throwing shit at you, someone is projecting negative feelings on you, and you just can't take it anymore. This is where you need to stop. You need to create boundaries. And the moment you change something inside of that pattern that is used to going round and round, you create an opening, you create an exit. And this is what happens when you allow yourself to feel emotions and not react to them. Because let's say guilt, you're so used to trying to avoid guilt that you feel guilty, and then you're like, okay, I surrender to your point of view, but even if I know it's bad for me. No, you accept that, wow, she made me feel guilty. Okay, I'm just gonna sit with this guilt for a while, and I'm gonna respond differently. And this is me creating boundaries. And boundaries, that's a really great way to see if someone is in a relationship with you where they benefit from that relationship. It's like a lot of people, they have so much shit that they try to project that shit onto other people. And usually small kids are the ones who get that shit thrown over them. And this is why we grow up feeling that we're not worthy, we're not capable, and we're just guilty and not good enough. Well, guess what? It's not your fault. It's just unaware people projecting their shit as a survival mechanism onto other people so that they can survive. This is why when we start taking responsibility for our feelings, we feel them and we actually let go of them, we stop that generational curse, that trauma where we project our shit forward. And that's not how we change the world. We change the world by taking responsibility and putting boundaries in place, not taking other people's shit, and just being like, this stops here. And this is why I do the work that I do, because I don't want to see this world just repeating in these negative cycles, because we are capable of living in a loving and fulfilling world with full of purpose and joy. So the biggest key point from this video that you need to take is acceptance. When you accept that all emotions, all events, all things is fine, and you sit with them and feel them and you let them go, This is how we stop the negative cycle. And we keep on doing that with awareness in every day of our life. This is how our life become positive. We step into our life of potential. We step into a world where the external starts to project good things to us, excitement, all these beautiful things. And isn't that what everyone wants? We just want to feel good. That's why so many people are running after money. They're running after love. They're running for the next big thing. But actually what they want is to feel good. And it's much easier when you focus on the feelings instead of the events that supposedly create those feelings. And that's a scam also, because even if you win the lottery, the whole excitement is just gonna be for a while. And then you realize like, wow, that didn't actually give me fulfillment, because there's so much still pulling you down, these negative emotions and events and beliefs. So the only way to actually be happy and feel fulfilled is to accept all these things in life and see that, wow, these things that have happened for me actually made me the person I am today. I honestly hope that you start to try out this technique and really sit with your feelings. Try to not react and not try to change everything when there comes something that is difficult. Sit with it and see, just as a test, how long does it take for grief to go away? How long does it take for anger to go away? When you don't react, when you just sit with it. It takes patience. It takes a little bit of suffering, but in the long run, the suffering that you take from feeling these emotions is so tiny compared to the thing that most people do is like suppress and just go and project that on everyone else. That's not how we make this world a better place. So try this out for a few days even, and comment below how that ended up working for you. My guess is that you will soon realize that, wow, I am worthy. Wow, I am enough. There was just so much bullshit put on me that I actually feel good. And then you keep doing this, letting go, you surrender to life, and you get into this place of trust. And the ultimate proof is when you start to trust the unknown, when you start to believe that the universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it, is here to help you and wants you to live a good life, you start getting proof of that. Wow, your heart opens and you just trust that life is good. It's amazing, because I know I've been on both sides, and I promise you, the trust side, the trusting unknown, when I started to trust in the unknown, everything changed. My relationships, my money things, everything just changed. Because I know I'm being taken care of. The universe that I'm a part of wants me to succeed. It's the same for you. The universe wants to see you win. Sometimes we just have to go through these struggles to get these lessons, and then we can appreciate everything when we finally step in to potential mode and we just start to feel love and joy and excitement again.